Hi, this is Erin with ECKOArt, Transcendent, and ECKO Certified Sound Healing. And I've tried to do this 3 times already, and so I'm doing it again. Hopefully, it will work better this time. I want to go over some of the imagery that I have on my photography website because I feel that the topics of paranormal phenomena require some explanation when you're making bold claims. A lot of people claim to have something to do with paranormal activity, and some people are able to show that, and some people don't bother to even try. I'm a person that if I didn't see it or feel it or hear it for myself, I probably would have a difficult time understanding it. So I probably wouldn't believe it was real. So because I do paranormal coaching and because I do paranormal artwork, I wanted to explain some of the work that I've done to give that claim and that work a foundation. So, back a few decades ago, I had a lot of experiences. I've had these experiences all of my life. They've been more at different times and less at different times. So, a few decades ago, decided that I was going to try to prove, because a lot of people able to understand a lot of the experiences that I was having. And I didn't talk about it with everybody, but the people that I did talk about it with, it made me feel very isolated in my experiences. And so over time, it became evident to me that for me to be able to have these experiences and not pretend to be something that I'm not or less than what I am, or, not write off an entire part of my experience of life, I was going to probably be better off if I could prove some of it. So eventually I set out, maybe 2 decades ago, to actually take pictures to prove it. So this is the process. They're not in chronological order, so forgive me if I jump around a little bit, but that shouldn't matter for the purposes of this, especially because I'm going to have to do this in segments, because trying to do it as a larger file, it's not cooperating. So this image right here is, let me see if I can make this, and I know I can make it full screen. This image is it's a part of a bigger story. And the bigger story is that because I felt very isolated, I was having a lot of upset with not being able to feel like I could kind of fit in with people. And it wasn't so much that I wanted to fit in, I just couldn't find anybody that I could spend time around that it would ever work with. So I felt very alone. So I had a few friends that were kind of my friends, like on the fringe of my life. So we would get together sometimes and do some things, but I mean, like, I could only interact even with them to a certain degree, because I could tell that even with all the experiences that they had, they weren't experiencing a lot of what I was experiencing, and it was starting to cause some jealousy with one of them. So I really liked the time that I spent with them, but I also knew it would be limited. Anyways, we had a gathering for a seasonal holiday. And part of one of the things that we did for the celebration was we did like a little game thing where we all drew a piece of paper out of a dish, and my piece of paper, and then we're supposed to have a message on them for us, like whatever our message was supposed to be, sort of like divination, sort of like a tarot card or an oracle card. And my piece of paper said, "You are never alone." And because it said that, first I was a little spooked by it, but I don't know why I would be, because of the way that my experiences really generally are. But first I was a little bit spooked by it, and also I was a little bit like, yeah, So maybe like a week or so later, I went on a trip, and I was on the east coast of the United States. We were on a ferry, and on the ferry, we were sitting down, and I all of a sudden got guidance from my guides in the ether to get up and go take a picture. So I'm on a trip, like a tourist. So I get up and I go all the way, I hurry like I'm supposed to, all the way to the other end of the ferry, and I go out on the deck and I take this picture of the beach. So I take the picture of the shoreline from the ferry. I had no idea that this was in the sky because I was a tourist. I filter things. So a lot of the times I do see what I'm taking a picture of, and sometimes I've limited people's ability to have the original. So anyway, in the original, there are either 23 or 28, and I can't remember. I can go back and count it because I have it. But for the purposes of this, that's really not relevant. But there are a lot of spaceships in this picture. And you can see that they actually they curve along the shoreline. So they're in formation all along the shoreline. And if you really look at that, you can see that. And so you can see they go back in, even here, there's more of them. They're all along there. And then if you take this picture and you put it into photo forensics, now what I've done with it, I've adjusted the lighting. I keep forgetting to say that. I've adjusted the lighting. I adjusted the exposure in this. That's all I've done, and then put my logo on it. So I didn't add anything to these at all. So if you take this picture and you put it into photo forensics, if you take the original of it and put it in photo forensics, you can actually see that underneath each one of these light ships is a column of energy that's, roughly the same width as the underneath light section of the ship that goes all the way down to the ocean. So they have energy columns underneath each and every one of these, and you can see that when you put the image in photo forensics. So I took this photo and I didn't know that those were in it, and we got done the trip, which was just a little bit later, and I went to Walmart and I had it developed in an hour, and I got the photos, and the person that was with me on the trip was coming into Walmart as I was coming out of Walmart, well, towards the doors to leave Walmart from the photo lab. And I was flipping through the pictures and I came up on this one and I was like, whoa. And the person that was with me came up and met me standing there, and I showed it to her and she just shook her head and said, only you, and laughed kind of, and, went about her business. That's the way that my experiences have been so frequently that people just don't even know what to say about it. So that is the story behind this photo. That and a whole lot of other things that were going on that just kept bringing me this message that I was not alone. I take this, the fact that I got guided to get up and go all the way out there to take just this picture, which I did, after having just received that note, I take this as my guides showing me that I'm not alone. This photo is, again, I've adjusted the exposure in it so that I can make the contrast better so that you can see it a little bit more clearly, what it is that I'm trying to show you. There's clearly a cube-shaped object up near the sun. Now, it's not as far out as the sun, but it's way up and out. It's not as close as it looks in this photo. This is zoomed in. So the story behind this is I was out taking pictures of the beautiful blue sky that day, and I wanted to take pictures of how the thick, milky cloud cover would progress throughout the day. So I started to take pictures, and I'd go back out a little while later. So it was blue, and then it was a little cloudy, and a little cloudy, and a little cloudy, and then all of a sudden the thick, milky haze. The cloud cover was so low, and it was so thick. And I stood out there, and I was really just kind of upset about it. And I noticed that there were like maybe 30 turkey buzzards swirling in the sky up above me. And it was an unusual amount to just see all of these. It was chilling because it looked like a spooky omen. But, sometimes things look spooky and they're really not spooky. They're just powerful. So I stood there and I watched them. And then all of a sudden they went and they landed in this big dead tree. And I was watching them landing in this big dead tree, and I was pondering them and taking pictures of them because the silhouette was really neat against the sky, and it looked really cool. And then my guidance again told me to turn and take a picture up by the sun. So I turned around and I took a few pictures. I have at least 2 images of this that are 2 different photos, and you can clearly see there is a cube-shaped object here. You can even see that it is casting shadows. So whatever this is manifest into this dimension, into the 3D, enough that it's casting shadows as the sunlight hits it. And I have another image where I did an inversion of this. And that's this one. Excuse me. And again, you can see it with the inversion that there's shadows that are being cast there. And the sun, instead is black because I've inverted it. So I call this Metatron's cube. Now, I had a customer that came into the shop when I ran the shop up in Jerome, that when she looked at this picture, she told me that she was hearing that it was the eye of Saturn. And I, hadn't heard that myself. What I got was Metatron's cube, which is totally fine. So I went back and I looked it up, and it turns out that there's a lot of overlap between what is Metatron's cube and what is the eye of Saturn. Now, if you forgive me, I'm going to take a brief break here and make sure that the recording is working still, and I will be back.